Hello everyone, this is Derek with Reef Automation, and this is another review of the new HYDROS that just came on the market. So I've had it for roughly about a week. I've been able to put it through its paces and kind of see what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and I'm kind of going to go through that. I'm going to show you a little bit of programming and how the app works so you can get a general idea of what you're going to be doing with it. So to get started, when you first get it, it's got a command bus port, and that's pretty much where you plug the power in. Now the command bus port is a CAN bus which can be connected to multiple Control4 units or Control2 units via a CAN bus cable. Now from the conversation I had with the company, they say that that should not be extended more than 15 feet unless you're going to power it on both sides. So if you're going to be plugging this into another device, you're going to need to make sure that it is about 15 feet if you want to power it. Now when you first get it, you got 4 outlets and you have the 4 USBs on the top. Now the 4 USBs on the top will come on simultaneously at the same time, so these are not independent. However, the plugs are independent. Now one thing I like about the power strip that comes with it is you can actually plug in some transformers. As you can see, it's got a pretty decent gap between all the outlets, so that's good. So if you have those devices that have larger transformers, you'll be able to accommodate them quite easily with this. Now the power bar comes with a bracket. Now the bracket's pretty nice, so you can mount this at pretty much anywhere. You don't have to worry about having to, use double-sided tape, for instance, to put it up. So this comes with the bracket. One thing also that it comes with is it comes with a temperature sensor. And one thing I did notice, and I have mentioned to them, is that the temperature sensor does not come with any type of mount. So if you do purchase this temperature sensor, just make sure that you purchase a mount with it because it doesn't come with it. Now each of the sensors that come in this are pretty easy to know where they plug in because of the amount of conductors they have. So for instance, the control port has 5 conductors, whereas the 0 to 10 has 6 conductors. The drive port has 2 conductors, and the sense ports have 4 conductors. So it's pretty easy to know where things plug in. So for instance, if I have the temperature sensor, I know that it's 4 plugs or conductors, and therefore it's going to plug into a sense port. Now one thing I do really like about the HYDROS is that when you plug it in, you can tighten it down. You don't have to worry about it getting unplugged, and that seems to be the case with all of their connectors. So I really like that. I did also purchase a leak sensor. So the leak detector is really nice. It's a rope leak detector. You can actually extend this, and from what they're telling me is you probably don't want to extend it more than about 15 of these, I guess is what they were saying. Same thing though, it has a little 4 conductors, so that tells me that it's a sense port, so I plug it into the sense port. Alright, so we're going to move on to a couple other things that are pretty interesting about the CoralVue in terms of the looks and how it feels. So they state on their website that it is water resistant or splash proof. However, there has been a lot of talk before the HYDROS came out, and I saw some advertising that stated it was waterproof. Now, after having them on my stream, we found out that that is not the case. It is a splash-proof device. I can see where they can say that. I don't know how it can actually get water in it. Obviously, if you have your probes exposed like this, or you have these caps off of it, there's a good chance you'll get water in it, but it is definitely not waterproof. I can say for certain that the power bar is also not water resistant or waterproof, and it doesn't have any rating or statement by the company that says it is. So just be aware when you get it that it is definitely not waterproof. So moving on, we're going to go over the app a little bit. So in the app, when you first get it up, you're going to have this status icon, and I'm going to do a short video on how to get things going at the end of this, so you can see kind of how to get things operational, but it's pretty simple to get it going. So when you first get it up, you're going to see it shows you an internal temp, It's going to show you the voltage that's being used on the bus of the controller. It's also going to show you the current. If you go to modes, you have multiple modes which you can adjust or change. You can add modes. So for instance, if you have a feeding mode, or you have a normal mode, or in this case, you have a water change mode. Now, one thing you'll notice in my phone, and I don't know if it's my phone, but things are cut off. As you can see, water change is cut off. If I go to the bottom, responding is cut off. And as we go through this, you're going to see on my iPhone 11 that there is quite a bit of stuff that is cut off. I have actually mentioned this to the company and they are aware of it. I do not notice this in my iPad, or I do not notice this on a browser. However, I do notice it on my phone. So just be aware, you're going to see some graphical glitches, and this is known, and I hope they go ahead and fix them, because in some aspects, which I'll show you, it can be a little cumbersome. Alright, so inputs, pretty easy. As you saw, I did hook up a leak detector earlier, but I also have my temp, and you can see the temp. If you click on it, it's pretty easy. You can put the safe range and the low range right here. You can also say what sense port you're using. So in this case, we're using sense port 1. We can say what it is. So in this case, it's a temperature probe. The unit actually doesn't automatically find or see the sense port. So when you plug something in, you do need to indicate what it is. Unlike some of the other controllers you might have seen where you plug something in, it just knows what it is. It's automatic. This, you actually have to tell it what it is. So we have the safe range and the low range, pretty simple stuff. And we go to notification level. This is kind of important. So notification level indicates what notification level you're going to use. So in this case, we have yellow, orange, and red. And when we go to the notification settings, I'll explain what that means. So if we wanted our temperature in our safe range to be between 77 and 82, and it got outside of that range, you would get an alert or notification. So since our temperature sensor is reading roughly 77-ish, we're going to change our safe rate to 80, so it's outside of the range. Now, one thing you'll notice right away with my phone is upload changes. That button is very small. Now, for some people, I've been struggling to hit that upload changes button. As you can see, I have to hit it a few times, and then it uploads the change. Now, anytime you do something, you have to upload the change, okay? So we're going to set this to yellow, and we're going to upload the change. So now our sense port or our temperature port is currently going to provide a yellow notification if it has an issue, okay? So now we're going to go back to HYDROS, and you can see the temperature is in red, which indicates that there is an issue or it's outside of the safe range. Okay, so since we set our notification level to yellow, now we have to make sure our notifications are set for yellow. So in order to do that, you go to the notification page, which is the 3 dots on the upper right hand corner. Now if we go there and we go to notification preferences, you can see that you have the ability in which to add, subtract, and enable different notifications based on the color. So we have email notification, SMS notification, and local notification. So for instance, since we did the temperature in the yellow mode, we're going to hit the yellow notification, okay? Now if you notice something, you cannot do yellow by itself. You have to choose whether to do yellow, orange, and red, or you have to choose to either do orange or just red. In this case, we're going to select them all, so therefore we're going to do that. Now notification repeat interval is important. This is really meant for email or notifications or SMS notifications. And what this does is if there's an alarm, it's going to send off that alarm after a certain notification interval. So if you were to get a temperature issue, it's going to send you the alert, and then it's going to wait the interval time, in this case 1 minute, and then it's going to send you another alert. It's going to keep repeating that every minute unless you change the notification interval. So we're going to hit submit, and now we have local, which is beeping and red flashing lights, which is what local notification means. You can't actually adjust the lights and you can't adjust the brightness. And what I do notice is that the brightness is quite bright, and it will definitely light up a cabinet if it's inside a cabinet. So just be aware that local notification is only sound and flashing red lights. So for instance, it's not working right now because you have to set the notifications before you do your alerts, and we did that the opposite way. So if we go to temperature now, we're going to have to resubmit the yellow notification, and then it should start beeping and getting really annoying. So we'll go ahead and do that for notification yellow. And as you can see, we are now getting the flashing and the beeping. We're going to turn off the notification by hitting none and upload the changes. And you know when the upload goes through, because it does kind of a little circle around with green lights to tell you that it's received that information. So there's your temperature alert, and again, that works for all the inputs. I have a leak sensor. If you hit the leak sensor, it's just going to basically use the sense port, and if it has water in it, it's going to provide you with the alert. Now, of course, I didn't mention you can also rename, so you can rename any of your sensors to whatever you want. You can also go down here to view as a text, and then it will give you a text. You can also view it as a tile, and then you can press and hold and move the tiles around if you want. You can also put it as a graph, and it will show you a graph. Pretty neat. So outputs, one thing when you set up an output, you have to set up the power bar as a device on the system, and that's under Wi-Fi devices. So if I click on the three arrows, that's where you can go to the status, which is what we just were at. The inputs, outputs, Wi-Fi devices, and we'll go to options and modes in a second. But if we go to Wi-Fi devices, this is where the power bar was added. I would hit plus and I would add the power bar. And like I said at the end of the video, we're going to do a quick setup of how to get this working. If we wanted to replace the Wi-Fi device, we can hit the replace button. We also have a notification level. Now this is if the power bar was to lose communication to the controller. So in that case, you can set up a notification to send you an alert if it loses it. Or of course, if you were to unplug it and you wanted to get an alert locally, you can also get it that way. Now you'll see power 1 is heater currently, and that's because when I set up my output devices, I went to heater. And what I did at the bottom here is I selected which port that is. And that's how it knows that it's port 1. You can see it's currently on. It's set for generic currently. So I can set this to anything I want. I can set this to an LED light, a heater, and depending on what you set it for will depend on the type of program it's going to use. We're going to get into more advanced programming in later episodes or videos. But for now, we're just going to do it real basic. So if we hit a heater, there's your on and off temperature, which input you want to use, which output you want to use. Active in mode is basically, do you want this outlet to be on while you're feeding? Do you want this outlet to be on during, or use the programming during water change, and so forth? You can say depends on, and what that basically will do is it looks at another outlet or looks at something else in the system and says yes or no. As you can see, the little marking here with the graphical glitch is it's kind of difficult to push, but it's there. This is if you want to have minimums, which we're not going to go over in this video. And also the if input unavailable has to do with fallback. So what happens is if it loses communication to the Control4, that's how it's going to function. So that's a general programming of the Hydros. You can see it's really quite simple to program. So a couple other things, we're going to go to options. In options, you can set your time zone, if you want the LEDs to be on or off, when you want the LEDs to be on or off. I'm not exactly sure what low power exit delay is. I'm going to have to go research on that. You can say mode control, so you can actually have a button that switches the mode depending on if you push a button, and we're going to go over that a little bit in a bit. So that's really all there is to the programming. Now one thing you'll see when we go to the three lines is it shows you the Hydros, which is what I called it. You can call it whatever you want. But it has the cloud, which indicates that I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, or in this case connected through the internet. Now you'll notice there's also a Bluetooth button. If I hit the Bluetooth button, this is a backup in case your Wi-Fi was to go down. I can now connect to the device through Bluetooth if I wanted to. So now I'm going to show you how to turn off and on the outlet and how to use the outlet. So it's pretty easy. If you click on heater, you can set it to auto, which is going to use the programming. You can manually turn it off if you want, so it's going to turn off. You can then turn it on if you needed to, it's going to turn on. And then you're going to hit auto to bring it back. So that's how you enable and disable outlets. Now one thing I noticed, and I mentioned this also to CoralVue, is with their power strip, you'll see that there is a button. Now when you turn off the button, it actually kills power to the entire system. Now if you notice, after a period of time, it actually comes back on by itself. So the button's kind of worthless, it really doesn't do anything. Now I do notice, however, if I push it and then push it back on, you notice that all of the outlets come on. So I do want to mention that. That is something to just be aware of if you are using the outlets. So as you can see, it has 2 pH probes, and you can plug those in to pretty much any pH probe that you buy. It does come with pinpoint pH probes, so if you want to use the ones that come in the box, you can use those. You can use any manufacturer out there. You can use bulk reef supplies. It really doesn't matter. So one thing that the Control4 does have that I really like is the 0 to 10 input. Now you notice there's a 0 to 10 output, but there's also a 0 to 10 input. Now the 0 to 10 output is for, lights or pumps or something that you want to control 0 to 10. The 0 to 10 input, however, is quite cool, and I think is one of their great features they have. And what that does is it allows you to send 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volt with a resistor or any type of device that has a button press or possibly has any way of sending voltage to this unit that's 0 to 10, and then the programming will do something. So for instance, if you had 5 buttons and you pressed button 1 and it was 1 volt, it will do something, it'll do one thing. If you press button 3 with 3 volts, it'll do something else. So there's a lot of things you can do with that, and I really like that. Okay, so a couple things that are out there that I want to mention. One thing is the system is not 100% wireless, and what I mean by that is if you wanted to control something in another room, you would need to purchase another Control4 or Control2 unit. Now, in order for those to be on the same system, you would have to control them with a command bus cable. So therefore, they do not control each other via wireless. Now, they will if there was possibly a power failure to one. So if one lost power, it then would take over on the other Control4 or Control2 unit. And they basically will essentially override the other one. So if something was to go wrong with one, the other one's going to take over. But again, you need to have a wire, so it's not wireless. I'm going to make a video after this one about cost and how to set up systems with the HYDROS, and you will actually find out that the HYDROS is not cheaper than some of the other competitors out there. I have done some research and I've also set up some scenarios and found that the Control4, while it can be cheaper in certain scenarios, it's actually not cheaper in other scenarios. And I'm going to go over that, like I said, in detail in another video. So another thing that was noted and that I did some testing on is there are many Wi-Fi power blocks or power strips that you can find, for instance, on Amazon. Every one of those that I have tested, and I've tested a few of them, work with the HYDROS. Now, I had a conversation with them about this. The power bars that are sold, they don't go through any testing with the controller, so I'm not going to recommend you use them. However, they do work. I have tested them and they do work with the HYDROS. So you could essentially buy any power block you find on Amazon and it will work with the HYDROS. So whether that's good or bad is up to you to decide, but that is something that I did find out and did test. Now another thing to note is they do mention that the unit is water or splash proof. However, these connectors, my concern is that they will corrode and possibly get stuck. And obviously only time will tell. I do like the fact that you can plug them in and tighten them. I think that's great. However, there is a potential if it was to be in a saltwater environment, they could corrode and technically they could get stuck. And that is a concern that I have. So I just wanted to mention that. So overall, in my initial review, I found that the programming was extremely simple to a point where I think anybody can figure it out. And I give CoralVue a lot of kudos for their programming because it's really simple. I do have concerns with longevity. I do have concerns with reliability. And I mentioned about the corroding connectors. I mentioned that the power blocks are made, they're basically the same as the other power blocks that are on Amazon. And if you do some research on a lot of those, there's a lot of problems with them. So we'll only see in time if these are gonna last and have any issues. But currently, I've had it running for a week. There's been very little issues. I haven't seen any of the relay stick. I haven't seen any of the issues in terms of the power causing any issues. The alerts come through really quick. So I did do a couple tests with losing communication or losing power. The alerts when you lose power to the power block are quite fast. They're probably within a minute. When you lose complete power to the whole unit, it took roughly 15 to 30 minutes to get a alert, so just be aware. I did test the leak detector, and when you do get water, it's an immediate, so there's no lag in that. One thing I did notice that is really nice is the app itself is really fast. When you upload something, it uploads it within 10 seconds, and I did it also through my Wi-Fi, and I did it through Bluetooth, and I did it through just locally, doing it at the grocery store the other day, and I saw how quick it was. So it's very quick. That's excellent to see. I've done some other videos on some other products, and they are extremely slow. So just to reiterate, there is 3 different apps essentially. You have a tablet app, which I found to be very nice. The phone app, which again has a lot of graphical glitches, so just be aware of that. I did find the upload button to be difficult. And it has a browser app, and the browser app is by far the best part of this in terms of programming. You could do everything on your computer. So very, very easy to use. Okay, so when you first set up a Hydros, you're going to see that it's going to be flashing green to indicate it needs to be set up. You're going to want to set up your Hydros account before you do this. You can do it in the app as well. You can also do it online. So make sure you have a Hydros app, sign in. You're going to hit the plus sign. Now you'll notice at the bottom of my screen, it says use legacy Wi-Fi setup, and then there's a button under it, and I don't know what it is because, like I said, there's some graphical glitches, unfortunately. So I'm going to hit Control4. It's then going to scan for the available Wi-Fi SSIDs in your home. So in this case, mine is DeBears. I'm going to hit that. I'm going to then hit done, and I'm going to then hit submit. And now it's going to essentially connect to the cloud and download all of the authentication so that it can connect to the cloud. So it's going to do a lot of little light dancing here, and it's going to connect to the cloud and then assign it to your account. So we'll give it some time here. Okay, so once it's done, you'll get a registration successful, and now it's going to reboot, so you'll hit continue. So we'll let it reboot. And once you get that, you're going to get the Control4. And again, you can label it whatever you'd like. But this is the serial number that's just going to pop up with. So we'll click on it. Once it's all rebooted, you should be able to connect right away. So we'll give that a second before we get the status once it's rebooted. And there you go. So now we want to add the power bar, and that is a Wi-Fi device. Now you could do it one of 2 ways. You can hit the 3 little dots here and just say add Wi-Fi device. You can also hit the 3 lines and go to Wi-Fi devices and hit them add. This is where you put the power bar in. So we're going to put power bar, hit create, hit continue, and now it's going to add the Wi-Fi device. Okay, so when you add a Wi-Fi device, my recommendation is that you unplug it and plug it back in. And that'll get the system into acquire mode, essentially. So once you've unplugged it, you're going to hit the plus sign, or plugged it back in, and you're going to call it whatever you want it to be called. So in this case, power bar. You're going to say continue, and it should find it right away. So we'll give it a few seconds here. For me, it took, I would say, maybe a minute or 2 for it to connect the first time. So we'll see if I can get it connected this time. Now it does say in the directions, if you are having issues connecting to the unit, that you should press and hold the button down. But as you can see, it worked. It took about a minute. Then you're going to call it what you want to call it. You can give it a notification level and then upload changes, and now it's on the system. And that's how you set up the CoralVue with the Wi-Fi power bar. Okay, so my initial review of the CoralVue HYDROS controller is that the programming is very simple. Actually, I found it to be extremely simple. We're going to get into more advanced programming possibly in some other videos, but for now, very simple. I do like the fact that you can plug them in, tighten them, and they don't come loose. I think that's great. I'm not a big fan of the fact that the power bars are wireless. They have absolutely no way of communicating other than wireless. They're not Bluetooth. The fallback was a little bit odd when I first started using it. It's working now. They keep on advancing their firmware to make it better. I'm not keen on a cheaper power supply or power strip that I can get on Amazon for much cheaper that works with it. That is my only concern, is that these power strips are not going to last very long. Obviously we don't know, it's only been out for a little while, but that's my only concern. The corrosion could be an issue and could cause the connectors to get stuck. We don't know that until the future. I hope that's not the case. I do like how everything's color coded. You'll notice that their connectors also have a color, so you can't really get it wrong. If this is green, this is green. I do like that the connectors are, they show 4 conductors for 4 conductors. They show 2 for 2. It's really, you can't plug in the wrong conductor into the wrong plug, which I think is great. The lights are a little annoying. I've spoke to them about this. I hope they put a dimming ability for them. I wish they had the ability to change the colors. So if it was a yellow alarm, it would go to yellow. If it was an orange, it would go to orange, something to that nature. Overall, it's a good system. If you have a smaller aquarium possibly, maybe even a larger aquarium, but if you're trying to do a lot of advanced stuff, just know that you're going to have to buy a lot more stuff, and I'm going to do a video on cost comparison. So just be aware that a lot of people think it is cheap or cheaper. It's actually not if you start to combine everything and figure out what you're going to need for your system. And again, I'm going to go over that in a separate video. So overall, I do give it a thumbs up. I think it's a good product. Unfortunately, it's not something I would use on my system just due to the fact that I have so much and the cost is just astronomical for me. In terms of programming, I think you're going to be delightfully impressed with how easy the programming is. I do like the fact that there's the ability to ands and ors. I do like the fact that everything could be tiled or in text. That's something that's really nice. You can also show charts. I didn't see any way to compare charts. I didn't see any way to do any type of power monitoring. Again, these are things that I'm going to investigate down the road, but this is just my initial review of the product after a week. So hopefully you liked the video. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the Hydros before you go out and buy it. And if you liked the video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Like I said, there's going to be a few more videos coming out with the Hydros here in the next couple days. So if you have any questions or concerns, just let me know. Thanks for watching.